Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program at the crossroads of religion and life, a series highlighting the cultural and social interaction between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTVC. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
It seems as though we see a lot more poor people in and around Austin these days. Is this true? And if so, what can we do to help? Hello, I am Father Peter Logsdon, rector of St. Mary's Cathedral in downtown Austin, and I am pleased to serve as your host on Austin Faith Dialogue. Our subject for today is very appropriate for a religious program, namely, are we listening to the cry of the poor in Austin? All of our different religious denominations teach that we have a responsibility to care for the hungry and the homeless. Today we will try to find out about some of the ways that our synagogues and churches are responding to these great needs. Our two guests deal with these issues on a daily basis. Jean Marcus is the chairperson of the Emergency Assistance Task Force of the Austin Metropolitan Ministries. Ron Guggenheim has recently been appointed as the director of Caritas here in Austin. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
Jean, I'm not sure that I understand what this task force is all about. How would you describe your Emergency Assistance Task Force?
Okay. Austin Metropolitan Ministries is a group of over 100 congregations, both Christian, Jewish, Muslim, in the greater Austin area. And the task force has grown out of a continuing interest within the group of churches and synagogues in the problem of how individual congregations can best respond to those who come to them for assistance. About 4 years ago, the beginning dialogues went on between some social service agencies and members of the religious community. Austin Metropolitan Ministries itself is a new organization, but it's carrying on that dialogue that has existed for a number of years. And the task force itself is a group of 13 people who've been working together since June to discuss ways in which the congregations in this community can best work together and support each other in the area, providing services to those who are in need.
What would you say that your preliminary results would be as far as, are there more poor people in Austin today than there were, say, 10 years ago, do you think?
Well, so far, what we've been able to do is to poll, to survey our congregations. We've gotten detailed responses from 70 congregations in town about their services and who they see, how much money they put into that, those services and their response is. And so far, what we see is that a good deal of the response that our community makes to those who are in need comes through the churches. In combination, the 70 churches that have been responsive to our questionnaire so far serve over 2,300 people per month. And that is a really significant level of involvement within the religious community in Austin. Mm-hmm. And in a given year, those churches and synagogues put together about $320,000 worth of resources. I think within the last 2 or 3 years, that level's gone up slightly year by year.
So your response from the churches and synagogues would be that this is a great need in Austin today, and that their response has been this tremendous support mm-hmm. for these programs of emergency assistance. Mm-hmm. Very good. I think that's the case in Austin from what I can remember from years ago when we would walk down Austin streets and everybody seemed to be doing fine. And now we see lines of poor people, so many homeless and many hungry.
Well, I think that's the tip of the iceberg in some ways, and I know Caritas sees a lot of the people who are homeless and serves that population, especially in the downtown areas. There's another population that I think the church probably sees more of than any other agency, and that's what I'm going to call the working poor. Those are people who aren't, they have enough support, they have enough resources that they aren't out on the street. They have jobs, they have families, but by the end of the month, their resources are depleted, and any emergency of any kind sends them over the edge. And without the church's support, I think we would see many more homeless people, many more people in very, very serious financial straits.
Right. And that leads us right into Ron, your area. Ron Guggenheim, you're the new director of Caritas here in Austin. You see these people, don't you, on a daily basis? And
yes, we do, Father. We have, we actually have three classifications of clients in general. We do have a lot of households that we count among our clientele. We also, of course, as has been said, we also serve a lot of the homeless in the community. The third, of course, is the refugee and resettlement program that we have in Austin. The first two, the households and the homeless that we serve, of course, are very much in keeping with the mission statement of the agency, which is to provide that kind of emergency service that is needed by way of food, by networking, clothing, housing, furnishings for a house, medical assistance through the clinic and other referrals, just whatever that need might be. That we
Ron, maybe you could tell us a little more about Caritas itself. How did it start, and how does it operate, and who supports it? Could you tell us a little of that?
Well, it's the organization is over 25 years in existence, and it's fairly widely known in and around Austin. The founder is Monsignor Richard McCabe. It is a multi-denominational charity. There are over 55 congregations that support Caritas, and I might say that it is through that kind of broad-based support that we achieve the service that we perform with people. By that I mean that those dollars are free of any restrictions relative to the need of the person, as opposed to grant dollars, which are sometimes restricted for a precise service or program. So it's because of that we are able to reach out and do things that many other agencies are not able to do, wish that perhaps they could, but are not able to because of restrictions that are placed upon their funding.
Mm-hmm. I was not aware until you mentioned it that 55 different congregations are supporting Caritas, and what would be a typical situation, for example, that comes to your door? You're located in the facilities of St. David's Episcopal Church, or next door to it?
Right next door to it.
In downtown Austin. And what would, if someone came to Caritas, how would they be served, for example?
Well, of course, they would come to the agency, and as with any other organization or service operation, there is an introduction to the agency that usually occurs through them being given an appointment with one of our caseworkers. We fill out a very brief questionnaire which simply gives us the introductory information that we need with the person, and after that then we go into what is their immediate presenting need. Many times people will come with, say, a need such as food. They need some food for their family. But through the process of that introduction, we find out that there are some children. Maybe the children are in need of some medical assistance. The children may have, one may have a cold, another some other malady, so that we're able to move them from that point of reference, from the initial point of reference of just food, into other needs, such as a referral to Caritas Clinic where they can obtain some medical assistance. Perhaps they might discover, or we might discover in working with them, that they need clothing. The children are starting school. They do not have the proper clothing to go to school. So again, through networking with our St. Vincent de Paul stores, we're able to send them out with a voucher to those stores where they can obtain clothing for the children to start school. That's pretty much the way it works.
And how about the homeless? What is Caritas doing anything specifically in regard to the homeless in Austin, which seems to me to be a growing crisis? And when we do see the people on the streets, or even people out of work, or people, they lose their homes or can't pay the rent, how does Caritas respond?
Of course, the homeless population has many different elements. You have the homeless who are in that situation because of maybe some family crisis that came up, and they simply could not sustain the blows of the loss maybe of a marriage, the death of a family member, or whatever, and that or the loss of their job, and that throws them into a downward spiral which ends with the person being on the street, very much alone and in a helpless condition. There are many other homeless who are there with other deeper problems and sicknesses, and they need an even stronger element of care, because many of them are dealing with maybe a chemical dependency of one sort or another. But I think probably the most significant thing that we do with the homeless on a day-to-day basis is to provide them nutrition, food. We do that currently with the Salvation, in conjunction with the Salvation Army Home. And we, through our kitchen and our food service, supply something like 250 meals a day to the homeless. And that is done each noon. Incidentally, through other services, other food services, the East Austin Baptist Mission, there is each day of the week, or I should say each day, 7 days a week, a meal is served to the hungry in the city of Austin. So that there is never a day of coverage, a holiday, a holy day, a Sunday, or any day, that there is not a food service, a meal that is provided to the people of Austin.
Well, I can tell you that as rector of St. Mary's Cathedral in downtown Austin, I really appreciate the work of Caritas, because we get literally tens and I guess over a monthly period, hundreds of people that come by the cathedral, and we have this coalition of churches and the synagogues that send you support, financial support and moral support, so that we have a place for them to go to Caritas, and so we feel good that we're all working together in this cause. Gene, that kind of leads me to a special word that seems to be current today, and that is networking, and how together we can address these problems with the poor, and as you said, with the working poor who are really suffering, it seems to me, in Austin today. What does the task force, what have you learned about networking and how we can work together?
Well, we feel after the various factors we've looked into, things we found out about the shape of the services being offered in Travis County, that there will always be a very central role for agencies such as Caritas and the Hill Country Community Ministries, who have the professionalism and the resources that are going to be required to work with families who have often very many almost insurmountable problems sometimes. But that the churches will also, individual congregations will also always have a role in this kind of service to the poor. And what the congregations have to provide, I think, is a very personal relationship to those who come to their door. So that even though a church may feel that they need to make a referral to Caritas or to some other very specialized agency, it's going to remain true that the human contact in the first instance is always going to occur, often going to occur at a church. And the churches do not want to just shovel that all down to Caritas and say our doors will be closed to this, it's just too big for us. But they do feel that since the situation is becoming much more serious, there's more people, they come with more serious problems, that they can't do this unassisted. And so in some ways what the Austin Metropolitan Ministries group is attempting to do is to find a way to support the people who are going to be in the congregations in a way that's useful for them to continue to offer services to those who come to their door. Now, every church can have a food pantry, but that might not be the best way to go. Every church may want to have clothing or money available, but in some senses that's not going to be the most productive way to do it. But what every church is going to need is a good sense of where to make a referral and what that person that they make a referral, what that person can expect to find. So that information sharing is going to be very, very important. I think in the future we're going to need a way of computer networking in some ways, where not every congregation needs to have a computer, but perhaps everyone needs to have access to an office, a call-in center where a computer is located to track, what days is this pantry open, what day is this clinic open, what are the procedures for getting utility assistance from the city of Austin. So as our whole civilization is getting more complex, dealing with the needs of a poor person at your door becomes more complex, and we need to help the churches be able to meet those needs.
I think you hit on something that's really crucial for all the churches and synagogues, and that is that we're not only for worship and prayer, and we're not only for fellowship together within the church, but as the theologians say, the constitutive element of being a member of a faith community is this social justice aspect. The fact that we care about our brothers and sisters, especially the disadvantaged in our society. And I think, what you're saying about every church needs to have this as part of its central focus, I think is really important. And I think that's what's happening in Austin. I feel that congregations are seeing that we can't just feel good on the inside of our churches, that we really want to reach out to the community. And so I applaud the Austin Metropolitan Ministries for this task force and for all the churches working together on that, as I do with Caritas. Ron, what would you say in terms of causes of this? How can we move beyond strictly helping, I would term it charity, to making our society more just? We've gone through a period where it seems that more people are under the poverty level now, that there's more of an underclass, more disadvantaged. At the same time, the spread between those who have and those who have not is separating. We have less in the middle than we used to. What do you think we can do as a society to it's a big question, I know, but how can we work for social justice for example, here in Austin?
Well, that is a tough question and a big question. What if I may, I would like to allude to an experience that I had some years ago in being in parish life. I remember a gentleman who was very, very active in this particular congregation and had contributed quite a bit to it over a period of time. Suddenly, the fortunes of the economy hit him the wrong way, and he found himself without a job. And over a period of time, he let himself sink into real poverty and just an extreme need. I felt that the congregation was not ready at that time to assist that person. There weren't the structures that we have today in parish life to help that person. So the result is that many, many things did take place in the past because parishes and congregations were just not ready to accept that responsibility. I think one of the bright spots is that we are moving in that direction. We are sensitized to need, and through the many volunteers that the parish inspires, the congregations inspire to go out there and do a lot of charity and a lot of assistance. Some of that harshness is alleviated. The thing that hurts, I think, the very most is the economy and the loss of jobs. And it's very difficult for people to recover when they simply are without income, without adequate income. And so obviously we need to strive for a smaller percentage of unemployment if we're going to get anywhere. Additionally, though, we need to break the what I call the welfare cycle. It's very easy for people to fall into the welfare cycle, to lose their sense of vision, to lose their hope, to lose their dream of living successfully in our economy. And so they settle for the dregs, for anything that's left over. And they pass that mentality on not only, well, to their children, to their offspring. So it's very important, I think, for us, if we're going to break the poverty cycle, if we're going to break the welfare cycle, that we're able to rehabilitate people and restore in them a sense of vision, a sense of their own worth, and a sense of their dignity and their capability.
And I think that through the churches we can help in breaking that cycle. I think we can churches, it seems to me, and the synagogues, whenever we come together, we kind of help each other, we motivate each other. And I think that reaching out to the community, we can do that too. We can be the leaven in society. We are the salt of the earth, and we want to share, you know, the great joys that we have in our faith. Yes,
In
Jean.
terms of how that might work, I would go back to something Ron said earlier about people presenting a need that isn't their true need. And I think as we get past the point of thinking all we can do is give out food or write a check for utilities, but start saying, let's also sit down, take some time to talk to this person and listen and hear the thing that they really need.
Mm-hmm.
And start taking a little bit of risk, you know, not try to solve, you know, a lifetime worth of problem, but to say, well, let's get involved with this person a little bit more. Let's walk down that trail and see where it leads a little bit. And, you know, I've watched that kind of process where someone comes for food but comes out being part of a community and over time gets a renewed sense of self-confidence, a renewed sense of direction, starts making some decisions that get them out of a hopeless situation and onto a different track. And I think that's where the churches will slowly, as they venture forth further and further, you start making some real differences in some people's lives.
What I'm hearing today in our discussions is the idea of being part of a community, of our churches working together within the church, and also churches with other churches and synagogues together through Austin Metropolitan Ministries, through Caritas, through a favorite of mine, which is organized in Austin called Austin Interfaith, which works specifically and directly for social justice change within our society, as well as networking with all these groups like the Salvation Army and the Baptist Mission and your groups that you represent. So I think there's great hope in the fact that we can and are and do work together. Well, we have had what I consider a profitable discussion today, and I really have enjoyed this time, and I'd like to share a final word here, that as we bring our discussion to an end, that I'd like to thank Gene Marcus and Ron Guggenheim for their participation and their insights. And I invite you, the viewer, to join us again next week on Austin Faith Dialogue as the series continues at this same time. I am Father Peter Logsdon, and on behalf of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, thank you very much for watching, and may God bless you.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at